Today, I'm going to introduce an alternative conclusion as to why these palaces are all over the world. Today, I'm going to attempt to take our thought process a little deeper. And we're also going to see a palace in Russia that we are told has a painter that died years before the construction was even close to being done. Because we all paint our house before it's built. No. Right here on stpetersburg.com. We are given a panoramic shot of St. Petersburg, Russia, with perfect dirt roads where I don't see a single person. Massive buildings everywhere, yet not one person. These photos are from 1861, only 3 years after they say that this was constructed. You can see this palace in the fourth shot in the panoramic view, where it's becoming clearer and clearer that these cities all over the world, palaces, were constructed by a massive civilization, one that was here before us, a civilization that had incredible technology, and a civilization that was here only a few hundred years ago, a civilization that is clearly being hidden to us. Yet their construction sits here looking at us straight in the face. These photos are alarming in my opinion. Everyone should be asking questions at this point. One question should be, who paved all of this dirt? Like it's all perfectly prepared for these photos. And I'm going to suggest an alternative, much less likely idea, an idea that should just be out there for people to think about. And possibly not just an alternative idea, but something that could definitely be an addition to what we have already known. That there was a previous civilization here before us. But after doing countless hours of this research on this topic, after looking at these photos, where these cities look like they were on display for all of us, almost like they were prepared for us, cleaned up perfectly, and ready for us all to come into the picture in the late 1700s. An idea that I'm just going to throw out there into the world for everyone to think about, instead of being just stuck in my head, is, are there two groups? One that actually cared about us, possibly created us, and set this stage for us, and one that does not care about us, with the corrupt group still being here, and the other group that built our incredible stage and felt that we deserve the greatest palaces to live in and use. The group that fully understood this type of incredible construction, possibly no longer here, with a corrupt group that ended up wanting to control an entire population, us. Changing the narrative to all of these buildings, hijacking all of the buildings, calling them Capitol buildings, banks. Buildings for them now, and no longer for us. Buildings that were always and originally meant for us, where they are now used as this group's offices to control us. Destroying the rest of the buildings with wars, great fires that weren't so great, tricking us for 200 plus years, giving us a ridiculous story that a group of people that had a population of basically nobody, that rode around on donkeys with no technology, were the master builders of stone-carved and marble basilicas that stand the test of time all over the world, when in reality it was a much more powerful group that is no longer here, or maybe they are, and watching from a distance. A group that set the stage for all of us, built all of these incredible buildings that we have been talking about this entire time. Temples, cathedrals, basilicas, Capitol buildings, houses that are white, and no, not the vinyl siding ones. Is it possible that we are so much more important, so much more powerful than we are told, and completely tricked and manipulated into thinking that we are just these lazy pawns to these corrupt individuals that stole our buildings, our land, our lives, making us feel like we're born just to work and sleep, just to struggle over and over, when in reality, our lives are so much more important and incredibly valuable. In reality, they have stolen our buildings, taken them from us, and giving us these depressing, ugly boxes in return, which are demoralizing to look at. We know that the historical narrative that we are currently given is complete nonsense. We have proven this, in my opinion. We have shown massive flaws, including the population lie, where supposedly we are being told that nobody wants to have kids with anyone for thousands of years. And then in the 1700s, out of nowhere, conveniently, right when all the financial institutions begin, the human mind changes for the first time ever. Just a random fluke, we are told. And people finally enjoy each other's company and finally want to have kids with each other. And this narrative was accepted for far too long. Believing this narrative, this chart, is borderline insanity. What we don't know, and what we all want to know, is where we are. What is the truth? Who actually built these buildings? They are incredible, and nothing like the buildings that we build today. It's built by a different mindset. They're built with much more technology, much more information that we do not have. We are not taught these skills in our highest architecture classes. Which class shows us how to knock out a palace in a year with no power tools, no light bulbs, no shipping companies, nothing? That chapter was left out of the college architecture book. We all know this. These buildings that we all see in every single one of our cities, they tell a much different story than what we've all been told by the mainstream narrative. And this narrative, this lie, it only helps one group, and the group is not us. There was a previous civilization that was here before us, a civilization that was massive and held incredible technology. But there is a very real possibility in my mind that there are also higher powers that are possibly still here that set this current stage for us, and the game has now been corrupted. We don't advance our overall thought process by simply being quiet. Welcome to episode 66 of my lunch break. I hope you're all having a great day, and if you're new, welcome. And I want to thank all of our sponsors over on Patreon. Thank you to FlatEarthDave.com. You can check out his app. I'll put the link in the description, and you can use my referral code, MLB. He also has my lunch break on the homeschool section of the app, which is really cool. Thank you to Rebecca K., Don Gaston, Christopher Arietta, The Lady Lacey Show, David and Sherry Ferguson, Edwin Johnson, Chuck Templeton, Joy Lee, PNR, Stephanie Nolan, The Burlesons, Suez KC, Dan Woodall, Dale, DJ Clicktrack, Edward and Brianna, Jacob Law, Jim Ribley and Christine Duggan, Kyle Glascock, Tim Rack, William Richard Jeffries V, PKTFnews.org, Regna Saturna, Dendries NL, Juana Mesher, Sirius Feline, G Power, Natalie Shippenoff, TheGoldenTeacher.co, Amberson EMC, Blake, HK Sue, Isaac Wright, Jessica Alex and Cypress, Melissa Edgar, Mr. Biggles Walker, My Hubby is Awesome, Rick Tapkey, Ryan and Laney Benner, The Arnolds, 3D6.Space, Attila Power, Buck Suey, Dakota Dunn, Eric Martinez, Ivan Apoctoli, Jesse DeLeon, Jim Bro, Kit Kat, Todd K, Edwin Rice, Helmut, Charles Kruger, Daniel Zid, Glenn Gunderson, Pacific Crafted, HaggardT-shirts.com, Meta, Jason Hochberg, Marie C., Roy Schoenholtz, Wayne T., James Alt, Dan McGee, Vince Moreno, Samir Schwery, Stony Stargod, Roz Matthews, Shiba Shaba in the Darkness, and VKH Bonner. You guys are all awesome and helping this channel out a lot. Who maintained all of this dirt? We're being told that a civilization of no people had the capabilities to construct an entire palace city. And this city will last forever. Yet when you look at the finished product, there isn't a single person anywhere. It's empty. And here we have St. Isaac's Cathedral, located in St. Petersburg, Russia. And the inside just blows your mind, with massive doors, incredible detail, with a height of over 330 feet. And we are told the exact same story that we've seen all over the world, that this wasn't even the first structure. This one was the replacement. In fact, it was the fourth consecutive church standing at this place. The exact same location has had 4 churches here. This is what we're being told. I'm shocked that this pattern, that 4 buildings have been on the same site. How has this pattern not been identified before? We see the exact same thing, even over in Texas, when they have 7 courthouses on the exact same site. We've seen it all over. It's a repeating pattern. All of these narratives all over the world are, in my opinion, created by the same source. And in my opinion, based on everything that we've seen, it's an AI, very similar to ChatGPT. This palace has bronze doors, internal columns, statues on the inside, and of course, the interior was originally decorated with paintings that have been since painted over. And supposedly they reproduced them. They had to get rid of the originals because they deteriorated because of the cold and damp conditions inside. This is incredible how they get away with destroying the originals over and over. We are told that this building was constructed between 1818 and 1858. When we can easily catch this narrative in a lie, when we go to Vatican City and take a look at Sistine Chapel, where Michelangelo painted this in 1508 to 1512, supposedly, predating this Russian painting by over 300 years. And it's holding up just fine, unless, of course, Michelangelo had a better paint set. It's ridiculous. So the paintings should have been just fine in Russia. And this is when the story gets even weirder, when they tell us that during World War II, the dome was also painted over, making it gray to avoid attention from enemy aircraft. So I hope we're all seeing very clearly at this point what these wars, seeing what their true purpose was. Clearly destroying these buildings, removing the inside because it was too cold. Give me a break. And they say the work was never completed. But when you take a look at the inside, it looks pretty completed to me. It doesn't even look like they missed one spot. And they tell us that the original paintings were done by this Karl guy and other random Russian masters of the day. And of course, no need to name these Russian masters of the day, but here is Karl. It was the pose of the day. Could you imagine if we gave information the way the mainstream narrative did? Just saying they were the flavor of the day, painted by the painters of the day, like it's some sort of special on the menu. It's incredible how this was accepted as fact for so long. It's shocking. And Karl died before the construction was done. Do we all paint our houses before the construction is done? Or is this the last step in the process? It is the last step. You don't paint your house years before it's done. He died in 1852. We are told that the building is done in 1858. So this guy that put the finishing touches on the palace is dead 6 years before the building is done. So we know we don't paint our house 6 years before it's done. Oh, and if we go down here at the bottom, we can see that this was his self-portrait. Very nice choice, Karl. Let's take a look at the technologies of this palace, where William Handyside is the engineer. So Handyside is the guy where they get 10,000 tree trunks and throw them into the marshy banks. So they want us to believe that there's just a bunch of tree trunks under this palace. And I know they are a bunch of liars at this point. So when we see something like this, I know to go deeper. This statement makes me think that there is something under this palace that has significant value. When we can see that this building has artwork and exhibits from a museum that were hidden away in the cathedral's basement. So now we know that this palace has a basement with valuables in it, and all chalked up to this war again. So they lay down these 10,000 tree trunks on a marshy bank, and then knock out a massive basement on top of all that, and then build a palace, and paint it before it's done, and then get rid of those paintings because it's a little too cold, but never finish those paintings, of course. Oh. And this is the fourth palace on the same site. It sounds like a lie. I wonder how much bigger this palace is underground, like we have seen in episode 44, when we caught a tunnel on camera from the Illinois State Capitol building while they were in the middle of destroying something and just call it a renovation project. So here's the construction photo that they give us. A photo from expresstoroussia.com. There's a big problem though with this picture. It's a drawing. And we know that they had cameras in 1816, so why give us a drawing? I've said this before, but it's so true. For all we know, they just drew this last night. It's a drawing. It's obviously not proof of construction, not even close. Here we are told we have a view of the cathedral surrounded by wood scaffolding from another drawing, drawn 3 years ago by a master drawer of the day, as the mainstream narrative likes to say. It's incredible. So in 1931, they turned this cathedral into a museum when, under the Soviet government, the building was stripped of religious trappings. In 1931, it was turned into the Museum of the History of Religion and Atheism. So the complete opposite of a cathedral. Going back to my suggestion that there's possibly a group that wants to take these buildings that were originally meant for us in a positive manner and turn them into the complete opposite, removing everything that was once given to all of us, a cathedral, changed to a museum of history and atheism, where the original dove structure was removed and replaced by a Foucault pendulum, which we all know at this point is some weird symbol for this group. A group that's clearly addicted to symbols, where they think it's all a big secret, when we know they're addicted to symbols, and it's not a mystery anymore. Let's take a minute and thank all of our badge members, all of our Patreons, and every single subscriber. You are all awesome and giving me a ton of motivation to go deeper, helping this channel grow to millions of people. And we're just getting started. Let's check this palace out now that we know that this building's narrative is forever in shreds. So here we have the St. Isaac's Cathedral. And right over here, we have another building that'll no longer be hidden in plain sight, the Mariinsky Palace. Now let's have some fun. And make sure you don't confuse it with the theater. And thank you for letting us know about this masterpiece. Is there a more entertaining topic? Finding buildings, palaces, that make no sense in the fabricated timeline that we're given. Palaces that we can actually go and visit, especially when we're told that this was built in a year. And unfortunately, the original building was destroyed by a fire in 1859. Adding to our fire total. Is your mind blown yet? Should we go deeper? The new one, the one that's here today, the palace opened up the very next year. So the theater's narrative is clearly a mess. So let's go back to this palace, where in 1839, they were building palaces as wedding presents. This is incredible. Built in 5 years, from 1839, and wrapped it right up in 1844. And then, of course, taken over by the Russian government and off limits to the public. Were these buildings built for them? It's definitely an interesting thought that these narratives are thrown together by this group as a successful attempt to steal these buildings from us and clearly getting away with it, and then create the passport so that if we want to go visit these lands that were once all ours, you need to make sure you have your papers. I don't think this was the world that was created for all of us. I think it was the complete opposite. And it's been 100% infiltrated worldwide. And it's beginning to feel more and more like everyone's starting to realize that. And I was looking at this area and saw these two buildings in the background that clearly look out of place. So let's check this one out first. A building that was taken over by the Russian Navy, where they tell us that an earlier wooden church sat on the exact same site. And then we have the other palace that we just saw. And remember, all of these buildings, they're all right next to each other. This is the Trinity Cathedral, where let's just close this episode off properly. Let's show the world that the lie is over. It's game over for the mainstream narrative. And there is no going back. We will all never forget this. The more and more people that see the lies, the faster the truth is going to be shown to us, where we are told that the Trinity Cathedral was constructed in 1828 to 1835. And in 2006, the blaze apparently started on scaffolding on the outside of the church, which was undergoing restoration. And we all know that restoration really means destruction.